Hello there, everybody, and welcome to my channel, The Story Behind the Songs. And I've been thinking a lot about, let's see if we can play a little bit of her stuff for you. Very famous singer. Great vocals. There's a rose in black and Spanish Harlem. All right. Don't want to overuse that power. I don't want to get in trouble. Well, that's Aretha Franklin, my friends. Now, who is Aretha Franklin? And did she write her own material? I was wondering if she was one of those artists, like, for example, Carole King, who wrote everything. Joni Mitchell wrote everything, almost everything she did. Well, I was thinking, well, she was so popular and she had so many hits and such good music, but apparently, no, she did not write most of her material, according to Google. I asked Google. Instead, she was a talented, wait a minute. She did have some talent in writing songs, according to Google, who penned or co-wrote several of her own hits. While she recorded many songs written by others, her primary genius lay in her ability to Aretha-size songs. Aretha-size songs, that means take possession of them and make them her own, rearranging and reinterpreting them so thoroughly that they felt like her own, such as Respect. And a lot like this song, Spanish Harlem, which is the song that I'm doing today. So she wrote or co-wrote classics like You Better Think, Rock, Rock Steady, Daydreaming, Call Me, Spirit in the Dark. Arrangement skills, she was highly involved in the arrangement of her music, often working out the structure of her at her piano before entering the studio, contributing to her unique sound. I really respect that. Somebody who really thinks with a lot of purpose how they're going to interpret something, the arrangement. There's like a lot of purpose there. I like that. I respect that. Not that, who cares, right? I'm just saying. Let's see. She was known as a master interpreter. Yeah, often taking songs written by others and making them iconic through her performance. And she does this with this song, and she does it with Bridge Over Troubled Waters by Simon and Garfunkel. Anyway, which was #1 in 1970, that song by Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Waters. But she kind of completely reinterprets it, and I have to be honest, I really like her interpretation of that song. But anyway, so she's a singer. She passed away. And her fame as a singer often overshadows her work as a composer. All right, and that's pretty much, I'm not going to go into more detail about that. I'm just going to leave it like that. But we are going to be talking about number 49 on the Billboard Year-In Hot 100 Singles for 1971, Spanish Harlem by Aretha Franklin. Now, Spanish Harlem was originally recorded by this guy who sang it. His name is Ben E. King. And he was super, that song. Oh, and this was in 1960. All right. And here, Aretha does an interpretation of that song in 1971. So 11 years later. So Ben King is an American soul and rhythm and blues singer and songwriter. He was the lead vocalist on 3 of their biggest hit singles. There Goes My Baby, This Magic Moment. And the other one is Save the Last Dance for Me. And then Spanish Harlem. So it was written by this guy named Jerry Leiber, or Leiber. I always these names, Leiber, Leiber, Jerry Leiber or Leiber, and Phil Spector. And we know how famous Phil Spector is. But Leiber was an American lyricist and responsible for such hits as Hound Dog, 1952. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Kansas City, 1952. I'm going to Kansas City, here I come. And then Yakety Yak, 1958. Yakety Yak, don't talk back. Silly song. And then Jailhouse Rock, 1958. Which, that one was specifically written for, the famous first rock and roll dude in the United States, Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley. So now, Philip Spector, his name was Harvey Philip Spector, his cool name. He was an American record producer and songwriter, known for his wall of sound production style in the 1960s. It's a whole new style that he, invented and used, which created a wall of sound, which basically was for example, if there was a piece for a guitar riff, he would have 6, 7, 8 guitars doing the same riff, and it would just make the sound a lot bigger. That's kind of like the idea. He is considered the most successful American producer of the 1960s. He was born in the Bronx, very cool, and relocated to Los Angeles as a teenager, and with Lester Seal, he co-established Phyllis Records in 1961, becoming the youngest U.S. label owner at that time. It's pretty cool. His studio band, later known as the Wrecking Crew, rose in the industry with his successful acts. So they became that Wrecking Crew. Basically were like musicians connected to the studio that he had, and who would, if there was a song and they had the singer, they needed the musicians. He had his Wrecking Crew. They would come in and they would do a lot of this stuff. And to create the wall sound, he had a lot of people coming in and to do these recordings. The wall of sound, yeah. So what else can I tell you about him? He ultimately produced 19 U.S. top 10 singles, including 4 additional number ones. The Crystals, He's a Rebel. The Righteous Brothers, You've Got That Loving Feeling. That's a great song. The Beatles, The Long and Winding Road. And George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. Really, really good stuff. So he was involved with all of those. And they are all big hits. Now, he is credited with having a significant impact on rock music. Yeah. And he also had a lot to do with the girl group sounds, like the Shirelles, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, the Supremes, the Shangri-Las, the Crystals, the Ronettes, the Dixie Cups, the Ad-Libs, and the Fuzz. So all of these were groups of women, and they like the Supremes, right? They were usually 3 women who did songs together from soul and rhythm and blues music, you know. So it was incredible, some great stuff. This kind of music was super popular in the 70s, and then the Beatles, I mean in the 60s, and then the Beatles came and changed everything. So Phil Spector also contributed to the development of music genres and movements such as the psychedelic movement of rock, psychedelic rock or psychedelia, art rock and pop, I'm not really sure what that is, noise pop, and shoegaze. These are movements that came later, I suppose. In 1989, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So he's kind of a big deal in the world of recordings. Now, Aretha's version of Spanish Harlem reached high pointages in the, in the music world in 1971. Beautiful. I mean, her interpretation of this song just has so much energy, it's just like ba-da-da-la-la-la. So these voices, these backup voices, and the instrumentation, and it's just da-da-da-la-la. It's like everywhere, and it's just like movement. It's just like really cool. So in her version of Spanish Harlem that was ranked number 358 in the Rolling Stones list of 500 greatest songs of all time, her song is in that list. Not an easy feat. Now, her version, which is number 49 on the Billboard Year-In 100s for 1971, Spanish Harlem, she released this song was released in 1971 in July. And this, let's see. And it outperformed the original Spanish Harlem, the one that was done in 1960 or something like that. So it outperformed the original song in the charts, and in which Franklin changed the lyrics slightly from "A red rose" up in Spanish Harlem to "There's a rose in black and Spanish Harlem." She added that black, and that was like, wow, cool, right? So "A Rose in Black in Spanish Harlem," her version went to number 1 on the US soul charts for 3 weeks, and number 2 on the pop charts for 2 weeks. Okay. And then this version also hit number 6 on Billboard's Easy Listening chart. Her version earned a gold singles for sales of over $1 million. And she was internationally known, and this song was played everywhere, around the world, Australia, Europe, some places in Latin America. So there was this musician at that time, his name was Dr. John, and he played the keyboard for Franklin's version. And then this other guy, Bernard Purdie, did the drums, and Chuck Rainey was on bass. Those are the primary musicians there. The backup vocals were done by her sisters. Her sisters could sing also. So AI gave me an overview about her background, about her, about more information about Aretha. And so I'm just going to read it to you, just to, It says here that the background vocals for Aretha Franklin's 1971 recording of Spanish Harlem were performed by her sisters. And then it says Carolyn Franklin and Emma Franklin, along with members of the Sweethearts of Soul, sometimes associated with the sweet inspirations. So like that was another thing that a lot of these recording studios had, was that they had, not only did they have their own musicians, but sometimes they had their own backup vocals. People, you know, women, men who did backup vocals, harmonies, you know, but the sweet inspirations, or they were also called the sweet inspirations, and the sweethearts were usually African-American women singing, you know, doing backup vocals, generally speaking, please. Other sources also credit Brenda Bryant, Margaret Bunch, and Pat Smith as singing in the background. And these are semi-famous singers in their own right. So Aretha Franklin is doing the vocals and she's playing the piano. She was a very good piano player. And the backup vocals are Carolyn Franklin, Emma Franklin, the Sweethearts of Soul. The song is was included in her 1972 album, Young, Gifted, and Black. And that was, let's see, what else do I have here? So this is really interesting because I wanted to find out why was this song so successful. And so it gave me like this list of key reasons for the song's success. And then it includes vocal interpretation, subtle lyrics, musical sophistication, timeless romantic appeal. So yeah, so let's read a little bit of this. Vocal interpretation and rearrangement. So Aretha reinterprets the song with a passionate, slightly raspy delivery backed by a richer, more colorful arrangement compared, to the original. So, I will be posting both of these, the original and her version, so you can kind of see the difference. It'll be underneath the video description there. This, her version is just so rich. It's just so full and very dynamic. That's for sure. Subtle lyrical shifts. She altered the lyrics slightly, singing there's a rose in black in Spanish Harlem, like I mentioned earlier, which gave the song a more personalized, modern, and street relevant feel during the civil rights era, which is when this came out, the civil rights. Well, the civil rights was in the 60s, right? But musical sophistication. The production featured high caliber musicians, including drummer Bernard Purdie and bassist Chuck Rainey. Let's see, which they all help, update the sound for a new generation of listeners of rhythm and blues music. And kind of Aretha Franklin, rhythm and blues, but she kind of falls a little bit into rock too, because a lot of people were into rock, but we were also listening to Aretha. So another thing, the timeless romantic appeal. While transforming the style, she maintained the song's core romantic, slightly melancholic narrative, which helped it become a lasting, soulful, and popular hit. It was a significant success, earning a gold single, like we said earlier, for sales exceeding 1 million. Yeah, she did pretty good. Now, Dr. John, who was born John Rebenock Jr. He lived from 1941 to 2019. He was a legendary Grammy-winning New Orleans musician, singer, and songwriter who blended blues, jazz, funk, and rhythm and blues. Known for his 1968 debut album, Gris Gris, and hits like Right Place, Wrong Time. That's a really good song. I was in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. And he was a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee and a primary ambassador for the New Orleans sound. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Now, personally, when I first came to this country, I was 10 years old. And I was coming from Guatemala, and it was 1963. And in Guatemala, we didn't know anything about Motown and rhythm and blues music, you know, and the girl groups that were happening throughout the 60s. I had no information at all, no exposure to any of that kind of music. And so when I came in 63, I was in third grade. The following year, in February, 6 months later, the Beatles came out on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I remember very clearly, I could speak English by then, because kids learn English really quickly. But anyway, the Beatles came out and they sang, you know, I Want to Hold Your Hand and whatever other songs they sang. But I just remember watching them and loving them and really having that feeling of happiness. You know, it was so cool to listen to them, and it was such a happy feeling that it gave me, and I just loved it. So I remember going back to school the next day, and we were all talking about the Beatles, you know, and a lot of us were like, oh my God, they're so great, right? But there were a few kids in my classroom who were, you know, Mexican Americans, and they were in the third grade, and they didn't like the Beatles. They liked Aretha Franklin more. Now, I had heard Aretha Franklin, but at that point in time, I didn't think that she was as good as the Beatles. You know, I was like, Aretha Franklin, are you kidding? The Beatles are great. But in reality, now that I'm older, I've kind of realized that my Mexican friends who were into rhythm and blues music, they had been listening to that music all their life, all their young lives. Their parents probably listened to them. Their cousins probably listened to all this rhythm and blues coming out of Motown, you know. So that by the time in 64, when the Beatles came out, they didn't like it because it was just like these white dudes from Great Britain, from Liverpool. And it was not like what they had been listening to, which was this incredible, rich history of rhythm and blues and Motown music that, you know, that was coming out throughout the 60s. It was incredible. And the 50s. So later on, of course, little by little, after I kind of got over the Beatles, I mean, I never really got over the Beatles, but after I kind of just started listening to other kinds of music and exposing myself to more different kinds of music, which was amazing in this country, you guys. Here in the United States, there was, and there still is, but there was back then, such an amazing variety of music. And from, you know, little old me coming from this country where we just didn't have that at all, to come here and just to be exposed to all this great music was like, wow. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm glad I'm here. So, yeah. And Aretha Franklin kind of like, as I grew older, I really started really enjoying her stuff and her style of her singing, you know, and all of her songs were really great and fun to sing along. So let's look at the lyrics for Spanish Harlem. It just already starts kind of happy. La 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 la. La 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 la. You know, that's like a, wow. It's like already starting with this upbeat. And then it goes into the lyrics. There is a rose in black in Spanish Harlem. A rose in black a rose in black at Spanish Harlem. I'm saying that wrong. There is a rose in black at Spanish Harlem. A rose in black at Spanish Harlem. It is the special one. It never sees the sun. It only comes up when the moon is on the run. And all the stars are gleaming. It's growing in the street, right up through the concrete, but soft, sweet, and dreamy. That is so cool. It only comes up. It never sees the sun. It is a special one. It never sees the sun. It only comes up when the moon is on the run. When the moon is going down, right? Or when the moon's moving to the horizon so that you can't see it anymore. And all the stars are gleaming. It's growing in the street right through the concrete, but soft, sweet, and dreamy. There is a rose in Spanish Harlem. A rose in black at Spanish Harlem. And then the lyrics continue and they say, with eyes as black as coal that look down in his soul. It starts a fire there and then it loses control. I'm gonna beg his pardon, yeah? He's going to pitch that rose. He's going to pick that rose and watch her as she grows in his garden. Oh my God, that is so cool. That's very romantic, which that's the whole idea, right? Because it was kind of a song about love, right? So, and it's romantic because it's a rose. There is a rose in Spanish Harlem, and Spanish because, you know, the Spanish are very romantic. We're very romantic, you know, and we do a lot of poetry, a lot of love poems in our literature, and, you know, and our songs are very evocative and of romance. You know, if you listen to some of the lyrics of some of the love songs in Spanish, right? Very, very romantic, like of love, losing love, finding love, the kiss that fills my life, you know, things like that. So with eyes as black as coal. So what she's doing is like, you know, what they're doing is they're taking the romantic part of the Spanish rose and they're placing the rose in the color of black as coal, that look down in his soul. The eyes look down in his soul. So the desire of wanting to be acknowledged and loved, I guess, you know, it starts a fire there. And then he loses control. So it starts a fire of desire. And then it kind of loses control, you know. It's like once you fall in love, you're gone, or you're not controlling anything at that point. And then it goes, I'm going to beg his pardon. Yeah, I beg your pardon. Like, excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, beg your pardon. He's going to pick that rose and watch her as she grows in his garden. It's like, wow. And then there's, you know, they are singing, there is a rose in Spanish Harlem. Oh yeah, a rose in black at Spanish Harlem, with eyes as black as coal that look down in his soul and start a fire there. And then he loses control. And I want to beg his pardon. He's going to pick that rose and watch her as she grows in her garden. La 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 la, and that's the song. That is the song. And this song became like, oh, big old hit, man. It was like, shoom. People were listening to it all over the world. It was so popular. And it's number 49 in this list. Let's see here. When Aretha sings it, let's see, I think they have a section here. Here it is, Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin's version, July 1971. Released in the cover of her album. Da-di-da-da. Changed the lyrics, as we talked earlier. Okay. A Rose in Black in Spanish Harlem, right? Her version went to number 1 on the U.S. Soul. That's, I was talking about that. Let's see. I remember I read, oh, here we go. I found it. Belgium, number 4. Oh, that's Belgium in Flanders. And then there's Belgium in Wallonia. It's number 25. In Canada, top singles, it was number 5. The Netherlands, it was number 1. UK singles, number 14. US adult contemporary Billboard, number 6. US best-selling soul singles, number 1. US Billboard Hot 100s, number 2. At the time when it was released, around July, August. West Germany, number 6. Yeah. And that was her version of the song. So you guys, you know, what do you think? Will you like the song when you listen to it? Are you familiar with the song? Have you heard it before? Well, I hope you do listen to both versions. I will be putting them down below the video in the description area so that you can click on that and have access to the 2 videos that I'm going to pick for each one of the versions. So that you can, the genre is soul, so that you can listen to her version and to Ben King's version, which is a really nice version too, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Okay. 1960. Yeah. All right, you guys. I hope you like this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I hope you found this interesting. So, until next time, take good care. Peace, love, and understanding for everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.